welcome to all the people who are joining us now. We have a nice Hollywood Squares quorum now, and some of our standbys who come all the time are here, so that's great to see you again. And I think I'll begin because the hour always goes so fast. I'd like to start with a prayer. The creator of all flesh, bless the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds form a common bond in true harmony to banish hatred and bigotry and to safeguard the idols and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. We pray, God, whose spirit is in all creatures, to awaken that spirit within the inhabitants of our land, uproot from their hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife, plant among those of different nationalities, faiths, beliefs, and values who dwell in our land love, companionship, peace, and friendship. So I think that's exactly what we're talking about today. We're talking about trying to get everybody to communicate openly and to speak to each other without using disinformation. So Haley is one of the interns within Interfaith Power and Light, and she has a few action statements for us just to get us started.
Hi everyone, I am Haley and I am a fellow for Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light. I am working alongside the Climate Action Campaign, and my main job is to get support for the Climate Action Campaign and different organizations that they work with. So right now we have a new petition that's out for President Biden. So if you would like to sign on to that, I'm going to post the link in the chat. And I was also going to ask if anyone is willing to write an op-ed in support of the Climate Action Campaign. That would be awesome. And I will also put my email in the chat and you could email me about that.
Great, thank you so much. And what's the petition asking the president to do?
I actually just received this about 20 minutes ago, so I really haven't had time to look at it. It was just brought out today, but I'm thinking that it is regarding the solutions for pollution. And I'm sure I will also get new documents that goes into depth of what it covers and stuff like that. So I could also share that with people once I receive it.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. So tonight we're going to be talking about countering disinformation about climate, and we know it's absolutely everywhere. And I reached out to somebody I've worked with off and on for the past couple of years, and that's Jake Roche from the Union of Concerned Scientists, because I know they have a whole initiative now on countering misinformation, disinformation, and they're looking at it particularly with in regard to climate and saving democracy. And then when I reached out to Jake, he said, "Yeah, I'm sure." And then we reconnected again, so that was great to reconnect. So he's the senior outreach coordinator with the climate and energy program at the Union of the Concerned Scientists. And although he lives in Massachusetts, he does work within Pennsylvania issues. So I'm going to let Jake take it away. He's going to talk for about 15 to 20 minutes. And with the nice number of participants we have here and the audience of people who I know are very informed about issues, I'm sure we will have a great discussion. So Jake, it is yours. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Phyllis. And I think me being here tonight is a testament to, staying with things, networking. You and I first met when I was concentrating a lot on Pennsylvania. And I just want to say thanks. We did some lobby meetings together with, I think, Pennsylvania senators and others on climate issues, I think two summers ago, right? So it's been nice, and thank you again for that. And thanks for inviting me here tonight. For those of you not as familiar with Union of Concerned Scientists, we're a national nonpartisan nonprofit. We were founded by scientists at MIT. It was originally around nuclear power, nuclear weapons. I actually work half of my time on nuclear weapons policy. And the mission of Union of Concerned Scientists is to use rigorous, independent science to solve our planet's most pressing problems. So we join with people across the country. We combine technical analysis and effective advocacy to hopefully create innovative, practical solutions for a healthy, safe, and sustainable future. And there's about 250 of us that work at Union of Concerned Scientists. I'm not a scientist. I do organizing and outreach. So if you have any scientific questions, please throw them out there, but I probably won't be able to answer, deep scientific questions, but I work with people that probably can, and I'd be happy to bring that to some of my colleagues. Yeah, and a lot of what we do is using that science that the analysts do and the science network members contribute to lobby, Congress, the administration on a variety of issues, and a lot of that is climate and energy issues. So I'm going to share my screen and hope that works out. And then I've got a little presentation on disinformation. Can you see that okay? Cool, thank you. So as you may know, UCS has been fighting lies and disinformation about climate science and solutions for many years. With the advent of social media, these lies are spreading faster, working against our efforts to make the rapid transformational progress we need to truly address climate change. I'm sure most of you that are on social media have seen a lot of this stuff going around out there. And UCS has made a playbook that I wanted to go over tonight. So we're going to discuss tonight, the next 5 slides contain information from a UCS report called the Disinformation Playbook. And when this is over, I can share it in the chat box, the link to the actual paper on this. And anybody that's interested, happy to keep in touch about this as well. So what is the Disinformation Playbook? Tactics. We're going to talk about who's spreading climate disinformation. It's a surprisingly small amount of folks. What tools are we using to fight climate disinformation? This includes how we do the reporting and how we're tracking that reporting. How to report that disinformation on social media, which is what we're focusing on tonight, mostly Facebook and Twitter. And security for those that do this work. What that means is, we don't advocate for fighting in the comment sections. We want to make sure that people are doing this work are safe, and also that you're doing it in a way where you're not necessarily negatively impacting your algorithms. When I was doing research for this, I wasn't using incognito mode on my browser, for example, and I started getting, I started noticing that things that were advertised to me, because I'm looking at, a lot of places where I usually wouldn't hang out on the internet. It definitely threw off my algorithm for quite some time. And then I thought, oh, that's because I've been hanging out in some darker places of the internet, if you will. And then what does success look like? So what are we trying to do by doing this reporting and, scrutinizing the information that you come across on social media? So disinformation playbook tactics. First one is the fake. That's conducting counterfeit science, trying to pass it off as legitimate research. Companies underwriting scientific research, obviously looking out for themselves while doing so, and producing science that comes from a desire for a predetermined outcome, which of course is, the wrong use of the scientific method. So companies underwrite a good deal of scientific research, and society often benefits from it, but bona fide scientific research demands a high degree of scientific integrity to ensure that results derive from the evidence and not from a desire to meet a predetermined non-scientific objective. People who have a financial stake in research outcomes should not publish in scientific journals without full and clear disclosure of conflicts of interest, especially when the results involve the safety or effectiveness of a company's products. And actually, as we're going through this, it might be cool for people to put things in the comments in the chat just for a discussion. If something from this slide that, some tactic from the fake catches your eye or imagination, maybe throw in, an example that you might have seen of this tactic. The blitz, harassing scientists who speak out with results or views that are inconvenient for industry. Corporations have threatened to defund scientists, research, muzzling scientists by including gag orders in research or employment contracts. So companies and industry trade associations sometimes try to bury scientific information by harassing or intimidating scientists whose research threatens their bottom line. And that coercion can take several different forms. Our case studies show how corporations have threatened to defund scientists' research, interfere with their promotions or tenure, transfer them to other positions, or tarnish their reputations. Some corporations have also sought to muzzle scientists by including gag orders in research or employment contracts, or through litigation and open records requests to tie up their time and resources. So that makes universities less likely to support important policy relevant research. Each of these tactics has the same goal: to silence scientists and stifle independent science. And that behavior violates the spirit of scientific inquiry, which is open to all ideas and findings and inclusive of fellow experts looking to learn more about our world. Any efforts to make scientists feel threatened or to discourage them from publishing or even continuing their research are direct attacks on our country's scientific enterprise, compromising its ability to effectively serve the public. And again, if you can think of any examples of the blitz, throw it in the chat and we'll chat after. The diversion. This is manufacturing uncertainty about science where little or none exists. You see this all the time. Undermine the science by falsely spreading doubt about the harms. And trade associations and front groups with innocuous sounding names undermining science. Phyllis, I can see you nodding at that, and I appreciate that. So yeah, the diversion. As evidence emerges about a product's adverse effects, companies will sometimes try to undermine the science by falsely spreading doubt about the harm, deceiving the public, and undermining the efforts of regulatory bodies to protect the public. So of course, everyone knows about the now infamous memorandum from tobacco executive in 1969, captured this strategy well. And the quote there is, "Doubt is our product, since it is the best means of competing with the body of fact that exists in the minds of the general public." So that was the argument being used by the tobacco companies. And now on the climate front, of course, we know that, the big fossil fuel companies, what they knew and what they were doing for years to cast that doubt and, undermine the science by falsely spreading doubt about the harms caused. Our case studies show how corporations have deployed trade associations and front groups with innocuous sounding names to undermine science, influence public opinion, and gain access to policymakers while maintaining the illusion of independence. Working to manufacture doubt and create the appearance of uncertainty where little exists is a blatant abuse of the way independent science operates to develop knowledge and inform the public about threats to their health and well-being. Moving on to the screen. So the screen is when, in this case, when fossil fuel companies are buying credibility through alliances with academia or professional societies. Corporations sometimes sponsoring academic chairmanships, sponsor students, or fund research. And as a group, industry-funded studies are more likely to produce results favorable to industry. It seems obvious that that would be the case, but it's something that we need to be keeping our eye out on. So many companies forge strong financial connections with university research departments with a legitimate goal of advancing public knowledge. Corporations sometimes sponsor academic chairmanships, students, or fund research. Arrangements like these can help companies improve their image by affiliating with a prestigious academic institution or professional society. Transparency and scientific independence are crucial in such relationships. As a group, industry-funded studies are more likely to produce results favorable to industry. This doesn't mean that corporate funding of scientific research will necessarily lead to biased results, but it underlines the need for full disclosure so that the objectivity of scientific literature can be adequately assessed. As our case studies show, companies have sometimes exploited their academic alliances to influence research and spread misinformation that serves corporate interests while undermining science. And finally, the fix. The fix is manipulating government officials or processes to inappropriately influence policy, lobbying the government to help enact legislation favorable to company interests, undermining the way federal agencies use science to develop policy, using political connections to gain access to top-level agency officials. And this one's the one that bothers me the most, the revolving door between industry and government. So like public interest organizations, many companies or industry trade associations lobby the government to help enact legislation favorable to their interests. Some companies, however, go so far as to undermine the way federal agencies use science to develop policy, pushing for changes that make it harder for agencies to fulfill their science-based missions, or using political connections to gain access to top-level agency officials. Such actions compromise the government's ability to protect the public. Unfortunately, a revolving door between industry and government presents a huge opportunity for people with industry ties and clear financial conflicts of interest to hold key decision-making positions. Such officials can help develop policies that benefit a former or prospective employer, policies that may live on long after their departure. While it's certainly reasonable for industry to participate as a stakeholder in policy decisions, transparency and public vigilance are needed to keep companies from using their deep pockets and powerful networks to promote policies that undermine scientific evidence and threaten public health and safety. So that was the playbook, and I'll be happy to share the paper that has all the citations in the chat as soon as this is over, and it has examples of each as well. So who is spreading this climate disinformation online? And it's a surprisingly small number of people and accounts, mostly connected to fossil fuel companies and their networks of think tanks and fake grassroots groups. We call these astroturf groups. From there, though, almost anyone can spread disinformation, intentionally or not, including members of Congress. And again, here I need to point out that we are a nonpartisan nonprofit. So climate, any sort of disinformation can be spread by anyone in any party. So the people who purvey climate disinformation are often also involved in spreading other lies too, about subjects such as elections and voting rights, and increasingly QAnon conspiracy theories. In reporting climate disinformation spread by powerful people and corporate and/or media accounts, we are contributing to the fight against many kinds of disinformation. And we're trying to go after disinformation where it starts or where it does the most damage. So I'm actually going to move to this slide here. Who's reporting on, or why are we reporting on social media? Members of Congress, regardless of party, think tanks, quote, astroturf groups, media companies. I'm sure you all can think of many groups that, media groups and companies that are posting climate disinformation, state legislators, and popular accounts that post pro-fossil fuel disinformation. What I have here is a bullet for friends, family, and random unpopular accounts. We are not asking our volunteers to report, their family members that are sharing this on Facebook. Of course, people can do that, but we're actually trying to go more towards the purveyors and the creators of this disinformation to stop it at the source. But of course, that's up to you. If you're looking to post things as disinfo, sometimes the only place you see it is from friends and family. So we have some tools, and I'm happy to share links to this in the chat after as well. So we created a Facebook group where people that joined, we had a couple of trainings like this for Union of Concerned Scientists members that were interested in learning what we're doing. And I'm going to go over how the tools work as well. So we have a Facebook group, a Google group for those that don't have Facebook, which I actually was pleased how many people didn't have Facebook that we were training. So we have a Google group as well. Online disinformation reporting form I'm going to go over, but just really quickly. But it's something that, Phyllis, if you wanted to have your own version of this. And if this group wanted to completely copy what we do, that's cool. And I think it's been pretty effective so far. Occasionally we have virtual meetings with everyone that volunteers to do this. And there's, seem to be getting bigger. We're actually working with a group of educators that are inviting high school and middle school students to start doing this work. So we're hoping to just keep that growing. And we have some big plans for 2023 for that. I don't know that I'll spend too much time on this, but Twitter advanced search, we're training people how to use that. It's a really cool tool. If you're on Google, like the way I find it every time is I just Google Twitter advanced search. And what's really cool about it, and I'll actually get to that, but you can get really specific with tweets on that. And we're looking into how to do disinformation reporting on TikTok and Instagram. I love Instagram, but I actually don't have TikTok, and that's not my department. How to report disinformation. So we have this group, and I'll if anyone's interested in joining the group, please let Phyllis know or get in touch with me. This is our Union of Concerned Scientists Stop Climate Disinformation group. We're adding to it whenever somebody in the group finds it. What we do is, if you find disinformation online, I used to do a section here, and I'm going to skip that for time reasons, and if you're interested in learning, I'm happy to talk more about this, but how to do the actual reporting of disinformation. Usually, I don't know if there's 3 dots next to post on Facebook. You can come down and report it as disinformation, and then it asks you a few questions. And the hope really is that if enough people do it, that the social media companies will do something about it. Same down here with the Google groups. We have a group where a very similar thing happens. When members of the group find disinformation, they can share it here, and then others in the group will hopefully be checking in or getting notified and going and reporting that disinformation as well. And then we have a form that we use to report that you reported the disinformation. Sounds, I know, like going down a bit of a spiral, but here we have just a couple of quick questions: where you found it, what the date was, the link to it, and how often you're monitoring these sources. So if you're following your state senators or state representatives, and you find, they post something that you've marked as disinformation for social media, you can come and say, yeah, you're frequently monitoring, and then also any notes that you'd like to provide. And that's just in an effort to get data about where people that are volunteering to do this are finding this. This is Twitter's advanced search. It's pretty cool. As you can see here, you can do, all of these words, this exact phrase. Like here, I have as an example the exact phrase "clean coal." A tweet that contains the phrase "clean coal" is like, if you're wondering what we consider climate disinformation, like that's a perfect phrase. You can also see, I don't think this is even Exxon's actual handle, but I used @Exxon. I think it's something different, but I just put that in as an example. But you can also search for your congressperson or your any account that you'd like to monitor on Twitter, and then see if you could put in this exact phrase "climate change" or "climate change is a hoax" or whatever you want to search for. It can get really detailed. What I found when doing some detective work on this is that congresspeople in general don't use the word climate very often, or climate change very often. They've found a lot of ways around using that phrase. And then lastly, security, or actually, I don't know if this is quite last, but real quick, like I was saying before, you don't want to share, if you do, if maybe Phyllis, if you want to start your own group or something like on Facebook, you don't want that information, and we make it very private. It's hard, it has to be invite only. And then, like I was saying earlier, use incognito mode if you're on Google Chrome, or something similar if you use a different browser, just so it doesn't throw off your algorithms. And then we have don't engage, report. So I don't think anyone's ever won an argument on the internet. No sense arguing in the comments is sort of our mantra. Better to just report and move on. And then hopefully actually report and then report to a group so that others can go report what you found as well. And then what does success look like? Social media accounts, including members of Congress, are held accountable for spreading climate disinformation, and platforms limit the reach of disinformation before it goes viral. And so there's teams far higher up than me at a lot of the bigger environmental groups talking with the social media companies about what to do in this regard, and fact checking happening in real time, those sorts of things. And if something is shown to be not fact checked, maybe a result or a positive coming out of that could be something saying like click here for actual information, like we've seen on other sorts of disinformation. And this is just for UCS recruitment, so I won't do this this part because I'm not trying to you have your own group going here, but yeah, everyone that's out, I think a lot of it honestly is inoculating people against it, talking to your friends and family about those plays, like looking for how to spot disinformation. And we have other blogs and things like that I can actually share how to spot the disinformation in the first place. But that's all I had, Phyllis. And I'll stop sharing my screen here.
Actually, if you can go back one screen before you stop sharing,
Oh, whoops.
there it says, we need your help.
Yes. Let me go to the end here.
Great.
Whoops, I went too fast. There you go.
Here we go. We need your help. So there's 21 people on this call, or 20 people on this call. So we really need your help. If you read on social media on a very regular basis and you want to do any of this, you can do it as infrequently or as frequently as you like. And we do need to have people reporting this. So what you would be doing is reading something, finding out about it, and then reporting it. And if you're interested in doing this, you can email Jake, or you can put a direct message to Jake in the chat. Jake's email is jroche, ROACHE @ucs.usa.org. And this is the kind of thing you can do from home. You can get I think it's particularly important to get younger people to do this because they're the ones that are on social media all the time. So recruiting high school students, college students would be absolutely wonderful. So if you're interested in doing this, that would be great. I'm always an action person. When I hear about something, I always like to say, okay, how can we act? And this was definitely an action-oriented thing. I know Jake was not able to monitor the chat while you were going through your presentation, but we had some absolutely wonderful comments being made and people who had points. But first, I want to ask a question. If scientists and dismissives do not use the term climate change, what language do they use, and what language should we use?
I'd have to look up actual examples, and just, I think I'm allowed to say this. Like, I remember the reason that I found that out in the first place was I figured that someone like Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio would be using certain phrases a lot. And when I went to actually search that to be true on Twitter, I found that it wasn't. I saw that the word climate was only used, and I don't want to say data that's not right, but I just remember when I was looking, there was a surprisingly small amount of the use of the actual word climate. So you have someone that's a clear climate denier that's actively working against climate policy in Congress, and they're not using the word climate in their tweets because they don't want the wrath of people such as ourselves to go and call them out for it. There are some, and I want to be really careful because it's so close to the election, I really can't use names because I'm working for a nonprofit, and but there are certain climate deniers in Congress that don't worry about it as much, that actually use climate denial as a reason, you know, a talking point happily. But there are others that are, you know, that love using phrases like clean coal and yeah, talking about like there's very few accounts that are just actively saying right out that climate change is a hoax, and especially in Congress. There's plenty of media outlets that do say that, and those sorts of places are hopefully where you can pretty safely go and report that.
So comments from the people on chat, we can start discussing that. Bill says, maybe we can discuss New Jersey has just sued 5 or 6 oil companies for climate disinformation. He says he doesn't know an awful lot more other than what he read in the newspaper, but most of us probably did not read this in the newspaper. So Bill, why don't you give us whatever little information you know?
Sure. It's being covered in the Inquirer, and it's a case that was brought by the New Jersey State Attorney General only, it was either late last week or the beginning of this week, so it's very recent. And the state is suing the American Petroleum Institute, and then 4 or 5 or 6 of the majors, ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, and several others. I don't have the full list, but you know, it's a suit saying that these oil or petroleum companies knew about climate change long ago, and I guess it cites some data that goes back even into the 1960s, that they were aware that climate change was happening and was going to be happening even more as the result of burning fossil fuels, and that they withheld that information and in fact told stories that minimize the impact of their burning of fossil fuels. So it sounds like a pretty comprehensive suit. One of the articles in the Inquirer did have a public statement from the American Petroleum Institute, and it was to the effect that, oh, the oil and gas industry has over the years been, you know, working on more and more environmentally safe ways of using their products, and are, you know, more friendly to nature than ever before. So it really didn't address the substance of the suit, but basically asserted that, oh, you know, we're good guys and we're working with you to try to improve things.
Mm-hmm.
Phyllis, I see Joy Baxter has her electronic hand up. I don't know if she has a related comment or another question.
Joy?
Oh, I just have a question related to the comment further on that I made.
Okay, why don't we get to that in a minute? I was wondering, do you know whether the Inquirer has asked like other places to join, whether the other states are going to join the lawsuit, or whether or not environmental organizations are going to be joining the lawsuit?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Jake, are you aware of that?
I'm not sure about that. I've heard of a lot of lawsuits. One that was started in California by like 30 fishermen. Some people on this call might have heard of. I actually posted a link in the chat to a report that came out from Union of Concerned Scientists a couple of years ago, showing that 90 companies were responsible for about 65% of global emissions since the advent of burning coal and oil, basically. And what those scientists did is really interesting. They figured if there was a receipt for a sale of coal or oil, that it was burned. And they used the paper trail of receipts and sales going back into the 1800s to basically show that, you know, 90 companies were responsible for 65% of the emissions. And then so if there's damages to say a fishing industry off the coast of California because of, warming sea, ocean acidification, if these things can be attributed to such a small amount of companies, 30 of which are really responsible for the lion's share, the ones that are getting thrown out right now, Exxon, BP, Chevron, that if they're responsible for the damages, think of, the Volkswagen suit and what that money's been able to do for states' renewable energy projects. So yeah, I think that's hopefully a trend that we see continuing, but I hadn't heard of this one that you brought up, Bill.
Bill, if you find a link to the article in the next half an hour or so, it would be great if you could post it. Otherwise, you can send it to me, and when we send out the notes from this and the recording from this, we can add that to it.
Yeah, I think the Inquirer does have a paywall, but I'll look for it, and if
Yeah,
I
I
can
know you
find
do.
it, I'll send
Right.
it to you.
Thanks. So Dylan, you've been patiently waiting.
Yeah,
And
thank
know
you. I just
also have
wanted,
a hair curling story to tell.
oh no, that's not what I'm going to talk about. I wanted to go back to the lawsuit that was being discussed. And I do think that somebody did mention EQT, but no one mentioned Shell. And I do think Shell was part of that as well. And we have that in our backyard now in Beaver County with the onset of the cracker plant about to begin. And that's going to be horrific. And when one looks at it, I hope you've all seen it, you look at it and you think, what could possibly happen here? It's extremely dangerous. And yeah, I had my own personal experience with the gag rule. I could talk about that whenever you want to.
Might as well right now.
Okay, well,
You can
along
also inform
many,
us what's
many,
and also inform us what's going on in Beaver County, because some of us from the east don't know that.
okay, in Beaver County, the largest petrochemical Shell, Dutch Shell, a poor company, a fledgling company, it is been given $16.5 billion tax credit many years ago to build a petrochemical plant that is probably the largest petrochemical plant in maybe the world, for sure in the United States. And they're looking to expand the region, a region that is on a fault line for digging out the Marcellus Shale and producing lots of natural gas that could then be the feedstock for the petrochemical plant, which makes plastic. We really need a lot of plastic, right? More plastic. And it's mostly these little dirtles that it's going to make in the hopes that other industries will follow along and pollute the beautiful Ohio River, already polluted through fracking. And this is what is happening. And the big push now, they didn't respond early enough in Beaver County to fight this. They just figured, well, we've had coal, now we don't have jobs anymore. Now this is a big opportunity. And Shell has promised all these jobs. And in the meantime, PS, most of the jobs, thousands of them, went to the building of this cracker plant over a number of years. And at the end of it all, there will only be 600 permanent jobs. So those are replacing the 500 permanent jobs that the old, I forget the name of the plant that they were replacing on the ground had. And it is immense and it is scary. So they want to build this out into the region as a regional answer to the development of and use of natural gas with more fracking. The companies are loving this, and the environmentalists are fighting it like crazy. So that's what's happening in Beaver County. And it also involves a 97-mile long Falcon pipeline. They named it Falcon pipeline that goes from Washington County, where they produced too much natural gas and don't know what to do with it, to this cracker plant to feed it. So this is a huge, huge concern here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, thank you. And now you can tell us about your story of.
Well, let me do that later. Let some other people talk.
Okay, so Joy, we had a comment she wanted to say earlier, and so Joy, why don't you tell us
Yeah.
about your comment?
Yes. So, I mean, what I'm a scientist. Both my husband and I have done basic research and things like that. And I think all the stuff that you guys presented and working with companies, and actually I've been on the other side, I've been part of a company who has commissioned research from academic institutions. I think all of what you presented is good, but what I have found as some of the most pervasive disinformation is more at a lighter level where you just don't, you only get one side of the story. So like for example, and I'm really disturbed by PragerU in particular. So like a PragerU video called Unobtainium, just talking about only one side of the issue. I mean, basically in a lot of things where, you know, people have said, you know, well, this is clean energy. Well, of course it's not completely clean, right? It's cleaner. And so we also have to take responsibility for our words. But they don't say they don't balance it. Like for this, the people who were like recently in my community bad mouthing electric vehicles, were talking about the lithium batteries, which they were using their computer or their phones, which have lithium batteries, to talk about, you know. And so is there anything that the Union of Concerned Scientists is doing to specifically counter these very sleek production videos to have a counter to that?
And maybe a little background on what PragerU is would be helpful.
I've some guy, Prager, basically says it's a university and puts out all this information, but it's really funded by oil companies and other
Mhm.
conservative, for other issues, conservative things. But for the ones that have been their main funding, for the ones that I've looked at, have been oil companies. And I'm a chemical engineer. I have friends that work in oil companies. So like I see the other side where they're working to actually produce, you know, industrial things for when oil is gone. Like, so like, it's not like a whole company is bad, but you know, obviously somebody's pitching the story.
So PragerU pitches these videos to colleges, instructors and students, and say, you know, if you're looking for something, it's kind of like you go search for something on Google for your assignment, like how bad is coal, let's say. PragerU might have a video on clean coal or something saying we are the future and we can be doing this. And lots of kids are using this in their reports in college and believing it. So, I mean, we're really they're really getting people disinformation, and they're doing it on purpose, and they are very, very slick videos. They're extremely well done. They're not, you know, the video that I would make when I'm trying to hold the camera up into my face. So question, Jake, is
Yeah. Well, I'm frantically searching for it, Joy. Somewhere there's a UCS report where the energy team went through and did a breakdown of each type of energy, what the waste is. You know, it's sort of a comparison of to combat that exact question that you're coming up against and that PragerU seems to be peddling.
Well, I mean, I have the raw data. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that's not what I need. I need somebody doing the counter to the slick thing, because I can't do that as an individual.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love this idea. I'm not sure that we've had any videos out, but Phyllis, we should chat offline about more about this and keep in touch, because that's something I'd like to talk to the communications department at UCS about, because they do make, you know, a lot of videos. So
And UCS,
there might already be something, I'm just not sure.
I asked them a couple of years ago when I saw something from PragerU that really bothered me, and I sent it to them, and they sent me back a white paper or a scientific paper, and that's not what Joy's talking about. Joy's talking about a slick video that when you Google, you're going to find both of them, and you can get a more balanced view of these things, as opposed to PragerU saying A and Union of Concerned Scientists saying, wait a minute, it's not quite true. And I think they could do a great job of that.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think having it, and even just dissecting their particular thing, let's say, wait, let's look at this, you
Mhm.
know, and just counter exactly what they're saying and show, okay, yes, there is a carbon footprint to producing solar panels. But if you look at the other side of this, and I mean, I have all that data, you know, it's just, it's not slick.
Mhm. Yeah,
Right.
and they were not going to look at a scientific paper.
No.
I mean, I have a friend who really believes in PragerU. He's met Prager himself and he's heard him speak many times. And he sends me these things and it says, you know, like the solar panels, you know, the lithium ion battery on your car, you know, think about the first day it was produced. It's a horrendous environmental risk. And yeah, but the rest of the time it's not. You know, there's got to be some risk to things. So, Dylan, do you
Sure.
still have your hand up from before or do you have a new comment?
I have one other comment I want to make now about that's new. You're looking for some maybe slick information. I don't know if you're familiar with Frac Tracker organization. If you go to, I don't have it, if you just Google Frac Tracker, they have a wealth of information, and they may very well have some videos and or can put you in touch where there are some really great videos that counter that.
So, Fred,
Could I say something, Phyllis? I don't
Sure.
know if you can see me. There are also, has anybody seen that YouTube series called Climate Change Denial Crock of the Week by any chance? I looked at it, but I think it was in 2013 it came out. When I was hearing all these talking points by the other side showing how we don't really know if climate change is real, it was amazing how effective that they had real climate scientists on there, and you can pick any topic and click on it. For example, volcanoes causing the carbon. They pointed out very professionally how the carbon is definitely not volcano carbon that's in the atmosphere, and they know it, and they're still using that point. So it went through every single point very professionally that was wrong. That would be a great kind of a tool along what you're talking about. You know, people can just click and see what the real truth is about the talking points that they're using to show how full of hot air they are, but from a scientific perspective. I don't know if I think the Union of Concerned Scientists maybe they can, like you said, use other people's resources, but have it clickable so you can see exactly what's going on. It was very effective to me. It just boggled my mind as to how much different, you know, it's clearly lying, clearly lying, but making it very slick. So, you know, sowing the doubt as though it's a real concern, and everyone knows that has any knowledge at all that's a total crock, you know.
Joel, can you say what that resource was again?
It was called Climate Change Denial Crock of the Week. If you look on that on YouTube, you'll find them, because I've done it recently, you know, and it's just amazing. They're such a professional job. They might even have something useful to counter what's going on here. I don't know.
maybe you could put it in the chat also, please.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. Okay, I'll do that.
And while you're doing that, Howard had a question. Does Steve Koonin, author of the climate skepticism book Unsettled, have any financial ties to fossil fuel companies or associations? Does anybody know whether Steve Koonin, who's the author of climate skepticism book Unsettled, does he have financial ties? Anybody know anything about him or his book? Well, maybe Howard, you can tell us a little bit more about what you know.
I'm wondering if there's a way to research whether he has ties to the fossil fuel industry. He is a scientist, high-ranking scientist, rather well known. He's got all kinds of credentials. He worked for BP perhaps about 15 years ago for a few years. And basically his book is that says that the scientific report information is unsettled and it's being twisted and put out improperly by people who are concerned about climate change, including the media and various news sources. So that's his main thesis. He has a lot of facts and data in his book, but that has been disputed. I'm wondering if there's any way to research whether he has ties to the fossil fuel industry recently or currently.
If we did a Google search on him, what would we find? Anybody want to do a Google search on him quickly?
Oh. Okay, I will do that when we finish here.
Okay, that would be great. So we do have an example. I mean, this chat is amazing. There's such good stuff going on in the chat. Let me see if I can find it. What their state representative refers to. State representative, it was Ann who says, my state representative used energy independence as a front for climate disinformation. She's dismissing green energy alternatives and climate action. Ann, do you want to say anything else about your state representative? And of course, don't mention names, please.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of time to talk with him about this. I would say he's only very polite, but really doesn't want to hear from anyone who doesn't support his views. Nice guy, but yeah, I don't agree with much of what he's doing.
And he's
But I tried to talk with him about how uninterested, well, I mean, it gives you some political background. I can't help it. Uninterested his party is in addressing climate issues and creation care. And he just kind of smiled. And yeah, his position, it seems to be that in Pennsylvania, well, we have to extract the resources we have, whatever it is. And, you know, in this sitting here, I just keep thinking, well, we have solar and wind resources too. Why isn't that a part of his thinking? You know, I came from coal country, and it's fracking country now. So, yeah, I know what kind of devastation that can cause. So, yeah, I'm not sure how to reach that. It seems like in the last few years, even though we don't want to be partisan, I'm 62, and I remember when I could talk with my legislator or send them an email, and they seem to be considering my viewpoint, but I'm not finding that now. I'm finding them just digging into their own viewpoint, not being open to other viewpoints or facts, even in some cases.
Energy independence was the term that was used at the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war, in which we were saying we want to be energy independent. We need to drill more so that we can be more energy independent. And it's such lies, because it's disinformation, because it takes 5 years or 10 or 20 even from when you locate a possible drill link place to when you can actually get something out of the earth. And then if you want to have a solution right now, that's not going to be the solution. So it's been used a lot by industry people. And I suspect this person is talking to the lobbyists who are talking to him a lot.
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah.
All right. Then we had a great comment about why do meteorologists generally not talk about the connection between climate change and the weather. Jake, do you want to try to answer that question? And you said in Maine.
I think, yeah, I mean, luckily in Maine, there's a person that's a meteorologist. His name's Keith Carson. And he's actually done events with us before where he's been a speaker and he's a weather, he's a meteorologist, he's an expert, he's a scientist, he's on, maybe the biggest channel in Maine. There's only a few up there, but my bet is that it's because it's just too much of a hot button issue. And if you're a local weatherman, you're not going to put your job on the line. And also, 40% of the people are going to totally disagree as soon as you use the word climate.
Mhm.
I think that climate change, it's a partisan issue now. That's the unfortunate business of it. We're not even supposed, I don't think you can really even say, I'm not sure, so don't hold me to this, but even saying climate change or vote for climate is off limits around the elections because it's considered that people know who you're saying to vote for if you say that. So my guess is why weathermen aren't talking about it is because it's just too much, unfortunately, of a divided issue. It's too partisan to talk about.
And I have
But
it.
I mean, maybe that's an interesting campaign to try to talk to your weathermen, try to get it. Like a lot of them have Twitter and Facebook and stuff. Maybe write them and say, hey, how come you're not equating some of the more extreme weather that we're seeing? Why aren't you using the phrase climate change? And see if you can get a dialogue going that way.
NPR definitely makes the connection numerous times. They often have articles or they have pieces that say, scientists have said that the recent blah, blah can be, the hurricanes may not have been caused by climate change, but they were made worse by climate change, and they give a report on that. So NPR is doing a good job of that. I have an analogy that might actually help, and I totally agree with you, Jake, in your answer, but it's also having to do with why do landscape architects never design for sustainability? And the answer is because they're not trained in it. And I suspect that meteorologists are just not trained in anything in climate either. It's not part of the curriculum that they studied, and that has to change for both meteorologists and also landscape architects. I mean, it's a topic that people don't want to talk about because they don't know enough about it. But I think we've also added in that huge layer of being political and being partisan. So we're heading toward 8 o'clock, and this has been an incredible chat, incredible discussion. And I'm wondering whether we want to continue talking about something like this at our November meeting. And I'm wondering whether we want to, maybe share resources that we have found that counter this. And maybe we want to talk about, this is going to be the week before Thanksgiving, thinking about, I got to go to my Thanksgiving dinner and Uncle so-and-so, the climate denier, is going to be there. Well, what can I do? So I'm wondering, can we continue? I mean, this richness of people who have such great resources. Shall we continue that discussion next month? You can all put in the chat or put your hands up or something like that. Patty says yes. Joel says yes. Peg says yes. Kelly says yes. Okay. Anne says
I think, Phyllis, if I could mention
the annual
pretty,
you want to mention the annual conference? That would be great.
well, I was going to do that, but also a closely related topic to, the training of meteorologists is the training of school teachers.
Mm.
And I think, there have been some analyses of how is climate being addressed in high school and even middle school or lower school curricula. And it's pretty inadequate. And, I've read or heard, and I can't give you a citation for this, but that, some teachers and school administrators are fearful of adverse reactions from their school boards. They know they have some conservative oriented people on the school boards. And so if you suddenly, and maybe some of the parents are, pretty conservative as well. So if their kids come home saying, my science teacher talked to us about climate change today, that's gonna, may get that teacher in trouble or get an adverse reaction. But also I think a lot of the teacher training schools don't cover that aspect of a science curriculum. And probably science textbooks are struggling to catch up with the science in this area, especially in a place like Pennsylvania, where probably half the school districts have science textbooks that are 10 years old or older.
Mhm.
So, that's a whole nother sort of area that's worth looking into, I think.
Yep, I agree. And I have heard that that girls come home and talk to their parents about what they learned in school. And when the girls talk about sustainability issues, they don't have to mention climate, but just maybe we should be wasting less, or maybe we got to turn down our thermostat, or those type of things. The parents take it seriously and the parents learn about it. And the reason I say girls do it, I'm the mother of 3 sons, and I would ask my sons what went on in school today, and they would say stuff. Whereas the girls love
Yeah.
to talk. And so, and actually, this actually showed that the boys don't tell their parents about what they learned from their science teacher, but the girls do. Peg, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. I'm thinking I learned a number of years ago, at least half dozen years ago. I believe it's the state of Washington has a K through 12 curriculum for the schools that people are allowed to just go in and take over. And that's a lot of work to put the curriculum together. But that seems to be, I mean, many states do their own thing and have their own standards, but seems kind of nice that that could be right there and available. I don't have any current updates on that scene. I just remember that. And also when I'm also a member of CCL, Citizens Climate Lobby. And what we did is we did a summer camp at the local library in Emmaus. It was about, and we taught children, let's say 5 to 12. There were not a huge number. I can't remember. It was like 5 or 6 to 12 children for like 4 days, 5 days. In the morning, we had a little camp and we worked on climate issues, starting by talking about animals' habitats, because kids could relate to the different animals. And I thought that was pretty good. I also thought it was pretty cool that we picked that one library because that's where Senator Toomey's family goes for their library. And I made a couple contributions of that nature for the library so that they're on hand there for any eager students. But yeah, I mean, his child didn't sign up for the class, but we thought it was kind of fun to be there at that particular library, and they were very nice there. The librarians, they were wonderful. So keep in mind even more informal type activities. That's all.
Okay. Anybody else like to comment? And you will be getting the recording of this as well as the chat. And the chat is really probably such a treasure trove. I've never seen a chat with more wonderful resources on it. So thank you all for offering so much.
Hi, is it possible to get a copy of the speaker's talk?
Yeah. Yeah, you'll get a recording of everything.
No, not just a recording, but something actually printed out.
Oh,
Could you attach that?
you mean the slides?
His actual speech, it looked like he was reading something. And I'd like to hear that over again. There was quite a bit that I would like to hear more about or understand better. And it was really hard to do.
Yeah, I think I can get that to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll
I'd
send it to,
appreciate.
I'll share it with Phyllis. Cool.
Okay, thanks.
Can I put my, can I ask that you send it to me as well?
Sure. I'll share it with Phyllis and then she can spread it around.
Actually, if you send him a direct email, he'll make sure to send it.
I'll put it.
If you can put your contact information in.
And I think there was at least
you.
one person who said they would like to be involved with your disinformation.
Yeah, I actually already sent somebody an email.
Okay, and if there's anybody else who wants to be involved, this is a very worthwhile project that anybody can do from their home and devote as much or as little time as they want to it. And whatever social media you're reading, everybody's reading different social media. So it's a super important project. And it's the way that we're going to shut down these deniers and the terrible ideas that they're spreading. So I want
Thanks.
to
Oh,
thank-
sorry, go ahead.
go on.
Well, I was just gonna say, thanks so much for having me, Phyllis. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great. That was a
Nice
great-
to meet all of you.
Yep,
This is
it
an
was
awesome group.
Nice
Thanks
to
for doing what you
meet
do.
great discussion. But before we go, Bill, give us a plug for our annual conference.
Yes, on Sunday, the 13th of November in the afternoon, Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light has its annual 1/2 day. It starts around 1 and goes till 4:30, something like that. We have a keynote speaker, and then the conference is actually live in 4 different towns in Pennsylvania. So we have, we'll be in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Lancaster, and Scranton. And the keynote will be broadcast. The keynote speaker is based in Pittsburgh, but it will be carried by Zoom to all 4 locations. And then
And the
following the keynote speaker,
is the
pardon, go ahead.
speaker is the sustainability director for Pittsburgh, where they have a very, very good sustainability plan. And her
Right.
name is Lockhart. Not sure what's her name.
I don't have it right in front of me, I'm sorry.
She's a very impressive speaker. And then we're going to have a panel discussion responding to that, and then we'll break into the 4 groups. So it's Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Scranton, and Lancaster. And in those 2 panel discussions, you can discuss more, Bill, what's happening in terms of its local issues that we're talking about.
Yeah, and each town will have local people on the panel. There'll be 2 sessions following the keynote. And, depending on which town you're near, please plan to come. There's registration information on the PA IPL website. And we're also if we have a list of attendees here, Phyllis, we can send that information out to everybody who is on this call.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it located in Philadelphia?
It's
In
going to
Germantown.
be at the Lutheran Seminary on Germantown Avenue in the Mount Airy section of the city.
And is there a cost?
Is there what? I'm sorry,
Is
Pat?
there a cost?
Yes, well, the standard registration is $25. And I think there is an option for low-income seniors or low-income registration. I'm not sure what that is.
I think 10, but I think we're also, we would take people who can't afford to pay anything if they want to come.
Is this going to be virtual?
The first portion, the keynote will be carried on Zoom, and I think there is a virtual registration. But what you'll miss will be the workshops that will be the in-person workshops at each of the 4 locations.
Okay. And is this on a weekend?
It's on a Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
It's 1 to about 4:30, I think, Sunday afternoons.
Okay. Well, we've gone over the hour, which I think, and we still have 16 people, means that this was a lively discussion that people were interested in. And I thank you for staying on, and that we will resume this conversation in a month. We'll be talking about resources we have and sharing, and maybe one end product that we could come up with would be like a site where we could start putting all this in. Haley, would that be something that you might be able to handle? Where you
What
would
was that?
put together a resource where we share things. So if you take the stuff from tonight's chat and you put it into like a Google Doc or something that would be shareable for everybody, could you?
Yeah, I could definitely do that, and I will work with Amani because she gets all of the recordings. So once I'm able to talk to her, I'm sure I could get something put together.
And then if you could come next month also and then help us.
Yeah, of course.
keep this going so that people will have, when somebody says, well, you know, so-and-so said such and such, we can refer them to, here's a video you can watch, here's something you might want to read, you know, here's another point of view. Okay, well, thank you very much and enjoy Halloween and the outdoors and everything else that's happening, and see you in November for our continuing discussion and also for our annual conference. So
Thank you.
good evening, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks for hosting, Phyllis. This was great.
Bye bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.